Okay, folks, it's Friday. My name's Carl. That means it's a Friday takeaway. We've got some bonus material for you this week. Um, I have been very lucky to interview a former patient of mine, Joe, about his recovery. So, in a moment, I'm going to pass you over to the recording that I made with Joe earlier this week. That goes through what his symptoms were, some of the tests that he had, what started his symptoms, what we did together, the impact of his symptoms on his life, how the self-care that we went through together progressed, another modality, another technique, and another therapist that he got involved with as well, and where he is now. He also gives a really lovely message at the end as well. So do stay tuned, do listen to the whole episode. It's golden. And I will be back next week with how to journal. So do stay tuned for that episode. And in line with me keeping a tab on what episode we are currently on, this is episode 33 of Pelvic Pain Natters. So enjoy the recording of my interview with Joe about his recovery. So, Joe, thank you very much for coming back and having this chat with me today. We're going to talk about our time together. You were a patient of mine back in 2022, almost this time of year. You reached out to me in 2022. We're going to look at what your experience of a person living with pelvic pain was, the impact of the symptoms and how that influenced your life at the time. We're going to look at some of the techniques that we did together. I'm going to ask you for a little bit of advice for anyone else who's going through this situation at the moment as well. So, yeah, first of all, thank you so much. It's a genuine pleasure to catch up with you again. We had a little bit of a catch up before we hit the record button. It's lovely, really, really is to hear you just living life again at the moment and just doing the things uninhibited that you want to do in life again. So, yeah, much appreciated, Joe. Thank you for doing this.
No worries, mate. No problem at all. Glad I can help.
Thank you. Well, it's not, and it's helping me, absolutely, but it's helping all of those other men out there who are listening to this, and even the partners and
Mm.
parents and friends of those that are going through this as well. So, um, Joe, would you mind giving a bit of a summary? I've got your notes as well here as well, that we can use. So, would you mind giving a bit of a summary of your symptoms when you reached out to me and the impact that they were having over you at the time?
Sure. Yeah, I can remember the exact day it started, actually. I was at my grandparents' anniversary meal, and I had this like constant urge to go for a wee. And it just continued and continued and continued. And I remember this distinct feeling of going for a wee, but then not having that relief, that kind of feeling that you've emptied your bladder. Um, so initially I thought, well, I've got some sort of like bladder infection, something's going on here. I thought I'll give it a couple of days, do the natural remedies, just drink a lot of water, stay off anything, dodgy food wise and stuff. But then the symptoms didn't go away. In fact, they actually got worse. I started to get uh, the first symptom I got was the unrelenting need to go to the toilet and feeling I haven't emptied my bladder. But then I was getting pain in like my testicles, in my penis. It was stinging a lot. And I felt like there was this enormous pressure on like my bladder and my pelvic region. So I went to the doctors, and obviously the first thing they do is they look for like any kind of infection. So they gave me antibiotics and all that kind of stuff. I had some specialists look at me. I had people inspect like my prostate, check there was anything going on there, and that all came back fine. So I was a bit like amiss of what was going on. I started to think that I was going crazy because there was nothing technically wrong with me, but yet there was this enormous pain that I was having to deal with every day. Um, so yeah, that's how I initially reached out and found you after some Googling on Reddit.
Thank you, Joe. And so clear, very obvious onset of the symptoms, and then just how that progressed further on from there as well. Yeah, you were put on ciprofloxacin for a week.
Yeah.
Had your prostate checked, then given doxycycline for another week,
Yeah.
A&E, more tests, blood and urine, all clear, no signs of infection, but the pain was intensifying,
Mhm.
more ciprofloxacin, amitriptyline, and just that build up over, that was February, end of February that you started to get the symptoms. And that for those, what is that? March, April, May, for pretty much those 3 months, that was just a um, seeing GPs or urologists, going to A&E, medication, try this, fingers up here, pee in this,
Yeah.
all of those things. That's
Yeah.
isn't it? That's really, really tough. And whilst you're going through that, what was that like? Like going through the symptoms that you had at that time, early onset, building and building and building in their intensity, but everything coming back clear and negative. Like what is that like to go
Uh,
through?
so I'm pretty bad anyway with like being ill. I hate it. So whenever I've got like a cold or something, I like will think of myself of like, oh, I took it for granted when I was well. Like I wish I would have appreciated it more. So generally speaking, I'm quite impatient on that front, but it had a massive impact on my mental health and my social life because there was technically nothing wrong with me, but I had this pain that seemed to be intensifying. Um, and it was almost like I was telling people, I was like, I'm in so much pain. And they were like, yeah, but well, there's nothing wrong with you. And I was trying to explain it to like work or like university or like people who invited me out to do stuff. I was like, I can't actually go because I can't stop weeing. And they were like, well, you'll be fine. Just come out and have a drink. I was like, no, honestly, I genuinely am in agonizing pain. So I felt very disillusioned with life for a bit and was quite angry at the same time because it didn't feel like anyone was taking me seriously. Um, and I felt frustrated by like the medical help that I was getting because they tried their best, but they're looking, I guess, for obvious signs of like infection or like something wrong with you medically. Um, and when they didn't find that, their attitude towards it was like, "Oh, you're fine. Don't worry, it will clear up." And it wasn't getting better; it was getting worse. So yeah, it's not something I would ever want to repeat that phase of my life.
No, totally understandable. And that's the hardest thing is it's a hidden illness. One of the
Mm.
hardest things, not the, but it's a hidden illness for all intents and purposes. Outwardly, you don't change very much. You're still outwardly the same, looking the same. Your actions and your behaviors might well change. I think I recall on the first session that we had, I think that you were going to go to a gig or there was uncertainty about going to a gig.
Oh yeah, I
You were
remember this.
yeah, you were traveling up from where you lived in kind of East Anglia, and I thought it was North London, maybe Camden. I had in my mind I
Yeah,
could
it
be
was. Yeah,
totally wrong, but the idea of that travel with that high level of urgency and frequency, and how the hell do I navigate this?
yeah, it was awful. I remember. So I was supposed to go one night, and then I just said, I can't do this. There's no chance I'll be out. Like the urgency was like, I have to pee every 5 seconds, and I'm in pain. So how on earth I'm gonna stand at a gig and enjoy it? I don't know. We then decided to get tickets for the following night, and then I did go. I traveled, but I was in the toilet like half the time, and the entire thing. That was, I think, the peak of the pain. That was honestly the worst. I was almost crippled over um, in pain. So that was the low point, I think, of the whole ordeal.
And it's those events where we feel I should be able to do something like normal. I just
Yeah.
want to be able to go and do X or Y. But the impact of my symptoms and the uncertainty that that then throws up is just, it's so far reaching. And
Mm.
then the next time someone suggests, like, Joe, do you fancy going to another gig? Already
Mm.
your barriers are up. It's just like, no, I
Yeah.
can't do that.
Yeah, exactly. That's something I'm trying to do. Like these days, I'm finding it a lot easier, but certainly like a year ago, even though I was, on my way to recovery, I was still like subconsciously thinking, is this worth it? Do I want to go out? Like, is it going to hurt? So yeah, there was a lingering mental doubt there, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's now, we're the middle of April 2024. We first met May 2022.
Hmm.
Um, and let's explore some of the techniques and some of the things that we went through as well, because it was multifaceted. It wasn't just that we were dealing with pain and calming your symptoms down as well. There was a role of diet and nutrition. There was some
Yeah.
exploration around some of the factors there as well. Um, so I put we on even on our first session together, we looked at the role of giving you a bit more balanced diet, so as that it's because it's very easy when we're not feeling great, we want to reach for comfort food, and often that comfort food isn't great for us, and it can just perpetuate symptoms. I am finding in about 20 to 25% of the cases I see, there's a clear and obvious link to digestion, and more so to patients with urinary symptoms, it seems that the gut is just involved a little bit more.
Hmm.
We spoke about the role of things like alcohol and getting a bit more balance there in your diet as well. You were still taking ciprofloxacin when we met as well. So again, there's kind of navigating coming off the end of that as well. I put together a movement plan to help to calm symptoms down for you. We looked at some contrast bathing, which is hot and then cold water, or warm and cool water is probably a more accurate term, to be used on the genitals to help to calm some of the symptoms of sensitivity around then as well.
Yeah.
So you've gone from just the medical route, like medication, antibiotics, or alpha blockers to help you with your urine flow.
Mhm.
That's quite a big leap then, isn't it, to start doing something more practical for you in your recovery?
Yeah, well, it was a big change. It was something that I had first because your first instinct, I guess, is to seek something medical as an explanation as to why you're feeling this way, and then to like shift your kind of thought pattern over to something um like different. It was a challenge, but then I noticed that when I started working with you and I looked at stuff like my diet, so I used to drink a lot of coffee like every day. I used to drink a lot more alcohol than I do now. Um, I used to eat foods that would trigger my stomach. I also had, whilst I was working with you, they found something um, that I thought was unrelated at the time, but I think is related. I had, I can't remember the exact name, but it's like Heliobacter bacteria that sits in your stomach. And that previous to the pelvic clamp made me go to the toilet quite a lot. So I think that was linked to my kind of like my gut health as well. But these kind of like dietary changes, and then something that I employed quite regularly, I got a wheat bag. So I didn't want to get like a hot water bottle just in case it split, and then I wouldn't be able to have children. But I got a wheat bag. So if I ever wanted comfort, I placed that on like on my stomach or like my bladder region. Just provide a little bit of heat comfort. I did lots of stretches in the mornings, like yoga and stuff. Opened up my pelvic floor, and I gradually noticed that these things were starting to work, or the symptoms were starting to ease, um, which kind of reinforced in my own head that it wasn't like something that could be treated with pills, which is essentially what doctors and the medical community gives you. So yeah, it was a big shift. But once I noticed things that started to work, I thought obviously there's something to this.
Well, you did the right thing to begin with. Let's not discount the medical appointments that you went to
Yeah,
go
yeah.
to GP and neurologist. That's so, so important. Anyone who's listening to this, if you haven't been to your GP or urologist, make sure you do go down that route. It's so important that you, if anything medical, if any red flags come up, that they are treated as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, H. pylori Helicobacter pylori, really common digestive problem, and I can think of 3 patients I've seen now within the last 2 months that have also had this either historically or are
Yeah.
overcoming it at the moment. So really, really common. But yeah, so you had your pelvic pain symptoms, high
Mm.
urinary discomfort, all that sensation in around your genitals, and then the digestive problem going along as well. I mean, that's a double whammy.
Yeah, it wasn't great. I mean, people used to like jokingly say like, he's quite a lot on the toilet. That was just something he was known for, like I was known for. And then after I got like the pelvic pain treatment and I had the eradication therapy for the bacteria, I realized afterwards, like, no, that's not normal. It isn't a personality trait to be on the toilet a lot. It's just something that was wrong, and I didn't know. Um, the doctor described the bacteria as to me as like something that quite a lot of people have, but in most people it stays fairly dormant, so it doesn't really affect your life. But in some people it can trigger and it can make you go to the toilet quite a lot. Um, and most people just assume that that's like IBS or it's just, bad digestion or they're allergic or intolerant to something. But yeah, once I had that, it made a real difference. So yeah, if you think you might have it, get it checked because
Definitely.
yeah, it changed my life.
Well, just on that, if you don't mind, Joe. So you're getting these digestive symptoms, IBS type symptoms on the
Yeah.
toilet a lot. Did you go to the doctors for that to get that checked out?
Yeah, so I basically what happened is we'll get diarrhea quite frequently, and I thought it was some sort of food trigger or something like that. So then I got a one of those tolerance tests where they figure out like foods and stuff that are upsetting your bowel, and that came back clear for literally everything. But it did say in the test that it picked up something that was at an abnormal level. So I went to the doctors on the back of that and asked them about it, and then they sent me the letter saying after I had a blood test that they'd found this bacteria that they think is what's been irritating me. So yeah, it was lucky in a way because I wouldn't have just naturally thought or to Google that. I would have just thought, it's IBS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you did the right thing. Food intolerance test. Is there anything I'm eating agitating my digestive system?
Yeah.
Um, So there were a number of figures. We spoke about coffee and alcohol quite a lot, and it's
Yeah.
quite difficult when we're kind of defined by some of the things that we do. And I can't start the day without a coffee, or it's just what I do. And
Yeah.
because you were studying at the same time as well, weren't you?
Yeah, so I used to it was very much part of my lifestyle. So like I'd go into university in the morning and the first thing I would do was get a cup of coffee, or at the train station I would get a cup of coffee, or on my way back I'd get a cup of coffee, or when I got home I'd have a cup of tea and then maybe a cup of coffee. So like I hadn't like when it wasn't there anymore, I really started to appreciate that yeah, I'd obviously taken this little small thing for granted. But initially, I mean, drinking wasn't really a massive problem. Like, I only really drink socially. So if I go out to the pub with friends or something like that, and it's not that often, so it wasn't that much of a change. But the to not be able to have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee in the morning initially was like a major lifestyle change for me, which sounds quite sad, really, but it is true.
I think it's incredibly common. I think it's really, really common. So now, just a kind of a glimpse into kind of where you are at the moment. We'll reflect, and there's some other things I'd like to talk about before we do this. Are you drinking tea and coffee at the moment?
Yeah, so I'll probably have a cup of tea every morning. I'll have a cup of coffee if I go out and about. I don't feel the need to have as much coffee because I think it's just not very good for you if you have that much anyway. But if I want one, I'll have one, and I don't feel any pain. So in terms of my lifestyle, those things are back.
Nice. All right. Someone just buzzed then. Really, really nice. And that's important as well, isn't it? Because it's not great to find yourself just in that situation where, I can't do those things.
Yeah, it's horrible. I don't know why. It's like when you take away like the small that's, I mean, going off a tiny bit of a tangent, that's something the pandemic and being kept inside taught me, was to appreciate the simple things in life that make it worthwhile. And having like a cup of tea in the morning or like standing in the garden, that's one of the small things that I really enjoy. So when it was taken away from me, I suddenly noticed. I was like, oh, this is crap.
I couldn't even go and do anything else at that time either. So just the joy of having something that felt a little bit more normal was.
Yeah, exactly.
So we started to build for you, make a list of activities that would help to increase your quality of life. And we spoke about the road bike, we spoke about walking, running, getting back in the gym again. And once your symptoms had calmed and settled to a point where you felt increasingly more and more confident, we built up your movement plan, we built up your kind of yoga routine. And then it's like, well, how do we get, because you're not damaging yourself. If you're doing these things and gradually getting more and more active, you're not damaging yourself. You're not making yourself worse. How do we get you back to doing something that makes you feel a little bit more like the Joe that you want to be as well? And that can have, I call it surfing uncertainty, that moment of, right, I want to do this, but where I am at the moment, I don't really kind of feel that that's where I am. So taking a leap of faith, taking those steps forwards can be quite a challenge, can't it?
Yeah, it's difficult because I'm by my nature, I'm quite an impatient person. So when something's taken away from me that I really like, I just want it like now. I can't wait. So to have it like very gently phased back in was, I suppose it was good for me in a way because it helped me, remove those kind of annoying tendencies in my brain that said I have to have things immediately. Um, so yeah, well, it was a challenge not to have things to hand.
It always is, but taking those steps towards you, the reason I do that is because I want you to be where you are effectively right now.
Yeah,
You know, we spoke on before you came on, and you'd moved away from where you were living. You'd moved somewhere else in the country. You're now moving back to where you came from. You're looking at a new job. You've got an idea around career progression at the moment as well. That's wonderful. That's someone who's brimming with confidence to be able to leave some of the safety where they were going through this, to move somewhere else, to face new challenges, to then look at, kind of moving into the future. And that's exactly that bridge from
mm,
where you are now or where you were then with your symptoms and all
yeah,
of the uncertainty that the condition brings to moving further forwards. So we progressed, we self-massage got progressed, we made it a little bit more challenging. You got your diet sorted out through the treatments of the H. pylori, that started to work in the right direction. We started to work around desensitization around sexual activity and building up your physical activity as well.
mhm,
And I also suggested we had the conversation around working with Sharon Goulbert, who's a therapist friend of mine, and how that started to link and start to move you further forward with your recovery program as well.
yeah, yeah. So that was so alongside the kind of the things that I looked at with you, like diet and the movement and like kind of gently phasing stuff back in. The one thing that I also really noticed is the link between your mental health and the physical pain that you feel. So working with yourself and other people, I realized that um, although it wasn't something that could be like physically, identified or fixed, the connection between the brain and the kind of like the nerve centers all around your body and your stomach especially are so intrinsically linked. Like we have this kind of view, humans, I think, that our brain is removed from our body and that our organs work independently of that. And that's just not true. They're so connected. And everything that you like phantom feel or like will trigger like kind of like nerve pain, it all is comes from the linkage between your brain and the rest of your body. And if there's something underlying, that's like if you're anxious or you're depressed or there's something like some trauma there that you've not worked on, it will have an effect, especially for men. because men have this awful, I think of men of a certain age, I think it's getting better, but men have this awful ability to just bury stuff and then continue out throughout their life. Because, you think because you can go to work, you can hold a relationship and stuff, you think, yeah, fine, I don't need to talk about this. But it always surfaces somewhere. It makes you do strange things, and it causes you pain in one way or another. Um, so yeah, it was the linkage there between all of them. Basically, I think is what cured me for the long term. But yeah, like was finding the people was like yourself and Sharon was the hard bit, I think, because it's if you Google it, you'll find it, but you have to know what you're Googling. Like it's almost like you have to, if you put like your symptoms in like WebMD, they'll tell you you've got a bladder infection or something like that. It's not really a very well explored um, kind of field of pain. So yeah, I wish it was something that, I'm not going off on like doctors or like the medical community because they have enough to deal with. And they're doing their best with the expertise that they've got. But I wish it was more understood widely, and it would help so many more people. And the one thing that I got from talking to you initially was that I'm not crazy. Like it's a real thing, and it will get better. So that I needed to hear that more than anything. So yeah, thanks for that. He saved me a lot of money and time.
Well, thank you. Just a couple of things there. Just well done for giving men's mental health a nod. Like we
Mm,
are incredibly good at just burying our heads in the sand and not looking at other factors that do influence us. Our brains and our bodies are connected, and the stuff that we bottle up and keep down is going to bubble up somewhere along the line. And it's really, really helpful to explore that. Sharon Gorbert, The Ultimate You is her website. She's a clinical cognitive hypnotherapist. And she works with pelvic pain. That's her expertise, male and female pelvic pain. There is so much uncertainty, Joe. I wish it was a better understood condition. I wish there was more awareness out there. It would certainly save an awful lot of problems when it comes to, medication this, medication that. Should we try this antibiotic? Should we not? Which may have even influenced your H. pylori in terms of
yeah,
it being a bit more
yeah.
agitated. So, here we are, April 2024. You're in a great place. Can you give us a bit of a window as to how you are at the moment?
Mhm.
Then any advice to someone who might be listening to this who's just going through their journey at the moment? So, yeah, give us a window as to what life is like for you at the moment.
So I would say from where I was before, literally 99% of the problems have gone, literally gone. I hardly ever experience any pain, any discomfort. It's like it just disappeared overnight. Well, obviously it didn't because I had to work on it for a long time, but the pain has gone. When I approached you initially, I thought, this is me for the rest of my life. And if you go on some forums and some stuff, you will speak to people that will say, I've had this for 20, 30 years and it's a lifetime thing. And I read that and I was like, there's no chance I'm going to be able to live with this for the rest of my life. It was too much. So yeah, so I can live a completely normal life now. I can like the things that I was like kind of like phasing back in. So I can run now with no pain. I get pain on the bottom of my feet, but that's a separate issue. I have a normal sex life. I don't get any pain there. Um, I'm not going to the toilet nowhere near as much as I was. And if I get so, like I said, I think mine is now kind of linked to like kind of my stress level. So if I find I'm going through a particularly stressful part of life, I might have a little bit of pain in the pelvic region, or I might feel the need to go to the toilet slightly more than normal. But with the techniques I've developed, I don't panic. I don't make that into a long-term thing. I know what it is, and I know it's going to go away. So it lasts probably an evening, and then I wake up the next day and it's gone, and I'm back to normal again. So that's the good thing. It will get better. In terms of what I would say to someone who's started experiencing these symptoms, is that I know how bad it is in the beginning, and I know it feels like it will never end, and it limits your social life, and it feels like you can't really talk to anyone about it because they won't really understand because you've not had like a formal medical diagnosis. I know what that's like, but if you tackle the symptoms head on and you allow yourself the space to heal, so that sounds kind of cringy, but it takes time, and you've got to work on it gradually, and you've got to figure out the things that help you. But there will be a light at the end of the tunnel, and it will get better for you. So don't give up. Don't resign yourself to the pain forever. It will get better. Um, and yeah, just keep going. Don't give up because I know how bad it is, but I'm living proof because I said to myself when I read kind of these like doom mongering stories, and I feel sorry for the people that have had it for like 20, 30 years, but I thought, crikey, this is going to be me, isn't it? Like my life's practically over. I'm not going to be able to hold down a job or like a relationship or whatever. But if I can get over it, there's no reason anyone else can't. So yeah, crack at it.
Wonderful, wonderful golden words there as well, Joe. And the doubts that we have to begin with, all that uncertainty, what if, what if, what if, what if, you're living proof. And if when you get some symptoms, they disappear with a sleep the following day, it's really normal to experience stress, right? Life is
Yeah.
pretty stressful. Some people get headaches, migraines, skin problems. Everyone has their own pressure release valve of how their stresses appear as well. But you're here. You're absolutely here. I wish you all the best of luck with the move. I wish you the best of luck with the new job and everything else you're going to start doing. And yeah, just living your life again. It's been wonderful, wonderful to catch up with you again, Joe. It's a genuine pleasure. Thank you so much for doing this. I know so many people out there will truly appreciate this, myself included.
Oh, thanks, mate. I really appreciate it. Thanks for everything you did for me as well. Because without you initially, I genuinely don't think I'd be in the position I was now. So thank you.
Bless you. Thanks, mate. All right. Thank you so much, Joe. It's me back, introducing and outroducing the podcast. What did you think? I'd love to know your thoughts. It would be great to get some feedback. Do come back with any questions as well. Yeah, Joe is a shining example of what is possible in recovery. Now, after a bit of a hiatus for a number of different personal reasons for doing these interviews over the last year or so, these will be coming to you pretty regularly now. I've got a bunch of patients who have recovered, who I'm now catching up with, and they are going to share their journeys of recovery with me, and I will share them with you. This is for inspiration. This is to show you and to illustrate that recovery is possible and patients can overcome the suffering and the dreadful nature of the condition. They can live their lives. They can really flourish in their lives as well once they get over the hurdle of the impact of their symptoms as well. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed today's content. Please do comment, rate, share, and subscribe. You can contact us at pelvicpainmatters@gmail.com. And next week, I will be doing the journaling on wins or just what went well, building the theme from what we've been doing over the past few weeks. All right, till next time.